Welcome to Incredible Kitchen Science, where in today's video we're going to be looking at making some scientific mousse while looking at the scientific method. Scientific testing is how you do science. Whether you're doing a PhD or you're 5 years old, you always follow the same steps. Coming up with a question, creating a hypothesis, and then following your scientific method or procedure. How do you write a procedure? What do you have to do for that? Well, writing the method or procedure is just like a recipe or a set of instructions that you have to follow when you're doing your science experiment. When you're writing a scientific method, it's not like a story of how much you enjoyed it and you don't get to add many adjectives, but it's a simple set of instructions that anyone else can follow. These can make it a bit impersonal without much creativity, but it means I know exactly what I've got to do. So mix with an electric whisk until light and fluffy. That is looking amazingly light and fluffy, just like it says in the method. So let's see what steps next. Adding numbers can really help your method so you know which steps to follow next. So our next stage is, it says to fill a saucepan with a few inches of water and cover with a bowl. Make sure the water doesn't touch the bottom of the bowl. Well, I can see that my bowl touches the bottom of my pan without anything in it. So I'm actually going to change my method slightly and use this glass dish and then put my bowl on and then put my water in. Now, if you make a change like this, you want to make sure you make a note of it in your method, because if we were to make the yummiest mousse ever or discover something amazing, scientists want to make sure they can repeat that. So they want to use the same thing again. So if you change anything when you're doing your recipe or when you're doing your experiment, make sure to make a note of it. When you're doing a science investigation, you want to keep everything exactly the same. So you're only changing one thing each time. In this investigation, we're only changing the chocolate. So even little things like the temperature we're using on the saucepan, we want to keep the same. Here we're boiling on a low heat, so I'm going to put number 4 in my notes so I know next time to keep it the same. The next part of our method is breaking the chocolate into equal size pieces. And again, we want to make it the same in both experiments, both recipes. So you can always add that to your method of what size you broke them into. In any good science experiment, you only ever change one thing and measure one thing. So as we're making our chocolate mousses, we're going to change the type of chocolate we're using and we're going to measure the temperature at which it melts. So we're changing one thing and we're measuring one thing. Both of those you should make sure are in your method. What it is you're changing and what it is you are measuring. While you're waiting for your chocolate to melt, you're observing a change of state. It's changing from solid chocolate into liquid chocolate, and this process is called melting. Solids and liquids both have different properties. You might be able to see some as you see the chocolate melt from the square-shaped solids into a flowing liquid. In a liquid, particles are able to move around, so it takes the shape of the container, whereas solids remain in their shape. So our chocolate has been melting at around 40 degrees C. So I'm going to write that down in my results. Now, you might find that temperature very interesting if you know what the natural human body temperature is, because normally chocolate actually melts at a very similar temperature to the human body temperature, which is why when you put chocolate in your mouth, it melts, and that gives it its delicious taste of melt in the mouth chocolate. Some really cool science is also that of the aquafaba foam we've made, and we can have a closer look at that using the phone microscope. As you can see, there are still lots of bubbles, just like meringue. However, in this one, we're not using egg, we're using the protein. This is really cool because it's a different way of making meringues without using eggs. So you might be vegan or just looking for alternatives or new ways of cooking. And it shows that this method also works too. The last stage in our recipe or experiment now is just to put our chocolate into our aquafarm foam and mix gently. And again, the last thing with scientific methods or procedures, they want to be as simple as possible. You don't want to overcomplicate them so they're easy for other people to follow and understand. Once you've melted your dark chocolate, do have a go with some white chocolate as well to see how the melting temperature differs with that. Be quite interested to know, so let us know in the comments below. Fun about doing experiments in your kitchen means you're left with some tasty treats at the end. And this is the art rather than the science, because taste is a bit more subjective. So you'll have to let me know if it tastes good too. Oh, it's delicious. Oh, I'm just going to eat all of it.